Good morning. This is RCB News, and I am Ryan Boland. I want to read a portion of an article written by Anthony Brown Logan from his YouTube channel. And the title of this article is Louisiana Fathers Step Up to End School Violence with Dads on Duty. Bravo for these fathers. So I'm going to read a portion of this article, and then I'm going to give my opinion on why I believe that there's such a problem among our youth today in reference to school violence. An article starts off, a group of dads in Louisiana created an organization called Dads on Duty in order to curb violence in a local Louisiana school. The school had over 20 arrests for fighting in a very short period of time. The environment was simply unsafe and not truly conducive for learning. There wasn't much in the arena of solutions for this serious and ongoing problem with violence at the school. So, one man decided to step up and create Dads on Duty, which now has over 40 members, all fathers. The violent school in question now has 0 reported incidents of violence since September. Many attribute this to the presence of dads on duty. Their objective has been to stop the violence, and they have accomplished this goal so far. Their methods are not based on the military, and they're not too odd. Just having an adult male presence in the school is enough for many kids to stay on the straight and narrow. The fathers also interact with students in a positive way, so there is not necessarily a feeling of dread when the men are seen. Several of the kids say they enjoy the dad jokes that the fathers bring with them. And I want to end that portion of the article right there. You can read the rest of that article in the description box below if you would like. But I wanted to just give my opinion on this article and on this situation. First of all, bravo to the fathers who were willing to step up and make a difference in the schools when they saw that this type of situation was going on. And I neglected to mention, if you guys haven't already seen the news, I think this was on Fox News. If you haven't already seen it, these were primarily African-American fathers, and they decided to come together and do something about the school violence. And clearly it helped. And I want to say, once again, I want to say bravo to those fathers. I commend them for what they have done. God bless them all. I hope and pray that they continue to do what they're doing, because there's going to be opposition. There's going to be people probably, and I hate to say this, but see, the devil don't like it when you do the right thing. He just don't like it when you're doing the right thing. He hates what's right and good. And I have this funny feeling that people on the far left are going to try to come in and try to make this into something else. They're going to try to corrupt it. They're going to try to interfere in the government. I hope that's not the case. I hope that the far left, these people on the left, have some sense. But I wanted to commend these men once again for what they have done. I am a father myself of a 16-year-old son. He doesn't live with me. He lives with his mom. Unfortunately, things didn't work out between us. But we still stay in contact, and I stay in contact with my son. I pour into him and give him advice and try to stay in contact with him as much as I can. I love him dearly. And if he ever sees this video, he knows I love him. He's very involved in football, and he listens to my advice. So I thank God for him, because it's important to have fatherly figures in the home. But what I wanted to deal with, I wanted to deal with why I personally believe that there's such a problem with fatherless homes and the absence of fathers in the lives of these youth. Why is it, particularly in the black community? Now, it's the same in other communities as well. It's the same in the white communities and the Asian communities and other ethnic groups in America. But the question is, why is there such a proliferation of this kind of activity among African Americans? Why is it so great among African Americans? And I declare to you that I believe that one, if not the primary reason, one of the reasons why there's such a problem with fathers in being in the lives of their children in the African American community is because of the welfare state. Now, you may ask, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. The welfare state, and what I mean by the welfare state, I'm talking about what was not the New Deal, but the Great Society that President Lyndon Johnson put in place in the 1960s, supposedly to stop poverty. It was his supposed war on poverty, and he put forth this massive program called the Great Society. Now, just prior to that, Franklin D. Roosevelt had initiated the New Deal. And the New Deal was another stimulus package that was designed to help deal with the Great Depression and to fight poverty in the Great Depression. And during this time, blacks in America began to migrate towards the Democratic Party. For the most part, according to historians, blacks were mostly Republican because that was the party that freed them from slavery. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and by natural right, most blacks were going to side with the Republican Party because it was the Republican Party, the earlier Republican Party, that fought for blacks in terms of fighting for their freedom and so forth. So according to some historians, 90% of black people were Republicans. But there was a lot of black people that were still struggling with poverty. And when you're hungry, you'll take whatever is given to you. So when the New Deal came on the scene by Franklin D. Roosevelt to deal with the Great Depression, many blacks began to take what benefits they could get out of the New Deal. They were still excluded from most of those most of those benefits of the New Deal, but the ones that they could get, they grabbed over to it. So they began to slowly migrate to the left or migrate to the Democratic Party. By the time Lyndon B. Johnson came on the scene in the 1960s and initiated his Great Society, blacks were like, oh man, this is really, really what we need. So blacks began to slowly but surely migrate more and more to the Democratic Party. But with the Great Society came the welfare state. It was an expansion of the welfare state in a way that Franklin D. Roosevelt had no idea would be the way. I mean, he would have been happy. He would have been happy if he was alive to have seen how much Lyndon Johnson had expanded the welfare state that he had created in order to get the government more involved in people's lives. This was just an excuse for the communist sympathizers to get the government to have more control over people's lives, not through violence, but through persuasion and high taxation and handouts. That's the way you trick people. So what happened? As I said, blacks began to migrate more and more to the Democratic Party. Now, you may say, what's that got to do with fatherless homes? Well, according to the research of Thomas Sowell stated in his books that blacks, when they were after the Emancipation Proclamation took place, shortly after slavery, the fatherless homes or the one family homes in black families was at 20%. I think it was like it's 20% along that line. So this was very low for people who had just come out of slavery and yet entered into the society. This was very low. Basically, you had two family homes in the black community from the 1920s, according to Thomas Sowell's research, until I believe the 1940s and up to the 50s. Okay, it began to grow a little bit because of the New Deal, but it was still, for the most part, still relatively even. There was more fathers involved in their children's lives during this period of time. It wasn't until the 1960s and the initiation of the New Deal and the expansion of the welfare state that more and more fathers began to become absent in black families. Now, you may say, how is that? Because as some of you already know, back in those days, the woman could only get welfare benefits if the father was not present. So what was happening was a lot of these young girls was getting pregnant to get the benefits of the welfare, to get more food stamps, to get subsidized housing. In order for them to get this, the father couldn't be present. So what I found out was that what they would do, what the government would do, is they would send representatives to the homes of these women to see if the fathers were anywhere around. They literally snoop around and see if the man was anywhere around, to make sure that there was no man around. Now, whether or not their intentions was good or bad, I believe personally their intentions were bad, because this was created by the Democratic Party and Lyndon B. Johnson, according to one historian, was a pure racist, and he stated out of his own mouth that he said that I will have those with the N-word ends voting Democrat for 200 years accordingly. So if that's the case, he was surely a racist, and it worked, because blacks have been voting Democrats. Over 90% of blacks vote Democrats to this present day. But that's another story, and I digress. They would literally send these representatives to the homes to make sure the fathers weren't around. So what this actually did was it encouraged promiscuous sex, and it encouraged fathers not to be present. Because father figured they can't be present, so what's the point? And then at the same time, a lot of the good jobs in a lot of these neighborhoods began they were sent overseas. So a lot of the high-paying jobs were being sent overseas. So a lot of these fathers didn't have good jobs to pay for, to make sure that their children was taken care of. So a lot of them end up getting on drugs and and selling drugs and become drug dealers. All these bad things happened, and it actually broke up the family, the family unit. And so as a result, you had an increase in fatherless homes. So according to Thomas Sowell's research, from the 20s to the 40s, I think from the 20s to the 40s or the 50s, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it was at the fatherless homes were at a 20% rate, or less than that, I believe. By the time the 70s came around, it was at a 70% rate. So the question is, why was that rate of fatherless homes and fatherless homes higher during that time, during the time of the 20s all the way to the 40s? Why was it lower during that period and higher during the 70s? And the suggestion or the theory is the welfare state. In my opinion, I believe that's what caused it. And bravo to these fathers who are taking initiative to do what needs to be done to see that these children are being disciplined. It's so important that the father is a part of that child's life. Fathers and mothers are different. Mothers do what mothers do. Fathers do what fathers do. They're different. Forget all this transgender stuff. They're different. Fathers are more disciplinary. Now, you may have some that are not, but for the most part, fathers are more disciplinary. Mothers are more nurturing. That's why when a woman has that, when women give birth to their children, they all, half the time they don't even want the father to even, deal with the child, because they still have that nurturing spirit. Which makes sense, because they had the baby in them for 9 months. So of course they're going to have a nurturing attitude, a nurturing mentality. But the fathers are more disciplinary. And I believe that they were designed that way by God to be the disciplinaries. That's one of the reasons why they're physically stronger than the female. It's not to say that they're better than the female. It's simply to say that their role and their purpose in the family unit, part of the role and the purpose in the family unit in terms of the father is to be a disciplinary. He's supposed to discipline the children, however way that may come forth. Okay, but he's supposed to, and I'm not talking about abusing the children. Come on now, y'all know I'm not talking about that. But there needs to be some discipline, and that's what the father is for. When that father is not present, when that father is not present, this is what you're going to have. Statistics state that most young men that go to prison, particularly in the African American community, but all over, period, not just in the African American community, but the Asians, Latinos, whites. Most of the young men that are in prison, most of them didn't have their father present in their lives. So that goes to show you that the father is very important. But I ain't going to even get into that. That's going to be another video about the whole role of radical feminism and what they really want to do. But they're helping to contribute to the destruction of fathers. But like I said, it's a whole nother video, and I digress. But bravo to those fathers. God bless them. What do you guys think? What is your opinion on this? What do you think about these fathers taking over in the schools? You think this is going to continue on? Do you commend these men, or do you think that they were maybe they're being a little bit too aggressive by coming to the school and creating this group? What do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button, share this video, and subscribe to this channel. God bless you all, and see you again on RCB News.